This is the first tier list that I've ever made for Dota 2 so far, and I thought it would be fun, since I've been playing a lot of carry recently, to make a list of heroes that in my experience, leveling up from unranked, completely new in the game, to placement games, to Herald, eventually Guardian, Crusader, Archon, and now I'm in Legend. I'm in Legend 4, and I've been playing more and more carry position. I probably climbed roughly 1,000 MMR with the 3 different lanes, so it's not that I've only played carry. I've played it. I think I've climbed 1,000 MMR with support, 1,000 with carry, and 1,000 with offlane, or maybe offlane the least even. But unless you count 4 position in that. But now I want to compile the sum of my experiences that when I am the carry, or when someone else is the carry on my team, who am I happiest to see? What perception do I have that we are most likely to win or least likely to win based on which hero my carry is playing? And so without further ado, let's start with D tier. Statistically, if I have a Sven on the team that isn't me, that is the highest indicator that I'm going to lose the game. Statistically, we compiled it. 20% win rate with Sven being my position 1 carry. Now, I don't want to blame it all on the type of people that pick Sven or even the hero that is Sven. After all, Sven gets picked in DPC. Right? He can be a counter to Broodmother, Enigma, Naga, maybe a bunch of things that have multiple units, and his cleave can be helpful to deal with it. And maybe in a sobering moment, it even has a little something to do with myself, as if I don't stack as a support, if I don't stack the ancients or certain camps for him, he can't make as much use of his great strength, his god strength, and his cleave to accelerate his game and his farm. And to go even further than that, that's something that I'm thinking about. But what about what I'm not thinking about? The general ebb and flow of a game, when he's strong, how to help him, how to support him. Maybe even the type of heroes I pick. You can be as aware or as clueless as to how you're unwittingly making your allies' games better or worse. So, while my experience may be losing with Sven, perhaps I had some part to play in it. And we'll never know exactly, because you cannot analyze that deeply unless you're the best in the world. And then you wouldn't even know what's going on at the low levels, or what works there or what doesn't. Statistically though, Sven is the worst for me to have as a carry, so he's in D tier. Personally, I've played him some, and all of this was position 4 or 5 Sven. All the losses was me trying him out as a 1. So perhaps it's just not working out that well between Herald to Legend. Bounty Hunter, not traditionally a position 1. You won't see the pros play it all that much as a 1. Like, pretty much not. But every now and then someone does it, and generally you're not happy with it. Unless he has an amazing early game, getting early kills, and he's just 1v9ing the whole game. He's not really the type of hero I want to have as a carry. Lifestealer. Lifestealer is pretty straightforward. He mostly specializes in single target damage. He's pretty tanky. His virtues are that he can defend his safe lane tower quite well. He's pretty ungankable because he can rage TP. He can deep farm in the mid to late game with rage TP. That spell immunity that prevents his TP from being cancelled unless there's like magic immunity, piercing, or a bash. Overall, he's really solid, but he usually just doesn't materialize as the one that will carry the game. If he has a bad game, he tends to kind of feed. People at my level, including me, sometimes use Q too quickly so that there's no magic immunity left. He's somewhat team reliant in that when he needs to infest an ally, he no longer has motor control about where he's going. People may not even get near enough to him at the right time in order to allow him to infest. And sometimes that may just get the both of them killed if the situation was unsalvageable in the first place. So, Lifestealer, I'd love it if Matumba Man was my Lifestealer. But in general, I'd prefer not to have this guy. And it's not just like, what can he do, what can't he do? Generally, if I have a Lifestealer carry on the team, they just feed a lot, like the one last night. Just take way too many fights because they're like, I'm Sustained King, I'm Strength, I have a lot of health. Generally not happy with it. Monkey King. Monkey
A new
King's win
journey
rate
is
across
about to
all
begin.
levels, according to Dota, is a little underwhelming. He averages between 45 to 46%, and only at Divine does it get higher. And he doesn't just get played as a carry in Divine either. If you look at Crit, he plays Monkey King 4, which is pretty damn cool too. A lot of standing on trees and scouting, cutting deep waves, kind of like a tree and protector might do. He's been
Return to
trying that
Monk
out.
King.
But overall, he returned to Monkey King. Overall, he is just a bit of a harder hero. No matter how free of a farm my Monkey Kings have, many times they don't materialize as actually a good player with Monkey King, and they don't know when to ult, they don't know how to stay alive, don't know how to kill, they miss their stun and so on. And I've seen it too much. I think he gets better as you get better. You can have lucky with someone that really gels with him, but generally, if I see them hover this, I think prefer something else. Phantom Lancer, relatively easy to outplay if you know how to look for the real hero. I'm not saying I'm particularly good at that, but Phantom Lancer, he basically just needs a very long time to scale into the game. He can be really strong in the late game, but if you compare him to Naga Siren or even Terrorblade, they just do what he does better. As an illusion carry, he wants to get a Heart of Tarask, maybe a Manta style. He wants to have a lot of farm. He takes a little longer. You won't see a Phantom Lancer getting a lot of kills early in the lane between minute 1 to 10. So generally he doesn't create as many good opportunities for himself, but he works when the team just holds the fort for 25 minutes, just like an anti-mage. But it feels like anti-mage has more outplay potential on the opponent, and Phantom Lancer not as much. You'll also see people that are returning players to Dota play Phantom Lancer, play Diffusal Blade. All of this is a little bit older meta because Diffusal Blade got nerfed on illusions. So it's a bit of an outdated playstyle. It can still be good. I don't think any of these can't work. Just I've noticed it hasn't gone successful as much. Morphling, same thing as Monkey King. The hero's a little too hard to play for the non-smurfing actual Legend and below player. Morphling has,
None can stand
again,
against my
just like Monkey King, a 45-46% win rate, and I think that's justified considering generally the players that you see in play. They're just not able to rise to the occasion with Morphling as much. He is one of the better carries. I don't think he's top 5 or top 3 even at the high level. Lina would fall in that category, and Naga Siren, very reliable, very strong. Morphling also needs a long time, and he's really hard to play. He can be really solid, and he has a great ult to counter some enemy agility carries, but it's just not going to happen often enough for me to be happy to see a Morphling on the team usually. Having said that, I use the words not be happy. I like winning with a wide variety of different heroes. If someone does pick Morphling, I don't tilt. I don't ask them to pick something else. I see it as a challenge for that game. Wouldn't it be cool if we won with this lineup? Troll Warlord, perhaps some of the worst ult in the game. Now, you hear this being said a lot among the pro commentators in the DPC and in general. You see this ult go wrong a lot. Recently, I had a game with Troll Warlord on my team, and it was going really well. We were communicating, we were vibing, he was getting kills, we got Roshan, we got Aegis, we got all of their outer towers, got the outpost, we had the free farm available to us, and I think it's more of a macro call than a micro mistake. The macro call, oftentimes, if you don't have a good high ground, is just to constrict the enemy to the high ground and farm the map for 20 minutes until they give up, until they try to run down and you smoke and kill them. You control vision, you control the map, you farm, you get really strong, and put yourself at the point of not being able to lose anymore. Having said that, Troll Warlord is a good tower hitter. If he has discipline about how to use his ult, when he has Aegis, he will be able to kill tower and be extracted by the team who watches on the edge of the high ground. However, because we are Legend and below, usually someone can't help but press their buttons and dive. The Aegis dive. I know the power of the curse of the Aegis dive, and I still do it. That is disappointing, and so do allies. So He starts hitting towers. Fight breaks out. He presses R. And he chases behind enemy barracks. Because he can't help himself. He dies. We lose the Aegis. He's like, leave me. 2 people leave. 2 people cannot bear to see him die. They stay. They die too. We lost the momentum and we lost the game. I mean, there is a way to use this well. I recently saw a DPC game with Troll Warlord. He had only 1 death or 0. I think it was 1. They were just vibing. They were killing thing after thing. Actually get use of his ultimate. And it is a strong hero against a whole number of heroes in Dota 2. But too often it goes wrong at the lower levels. Luna. Luna, a little bit underwhelming. You tend to compare heroes to others in their role. So you compare all carries with each other. Luna does have 2 builds, a physical build and a magical build. And actually, if you look at her win rates, it isn't too bad. She's about 50% everywhere. A lot of that is down to the fact that some of her kit is just automatic. Lunar Blessing is always active, and that's nice. And considering that some of it is automatic, and that's going to buff win rate by people that play it, that aren't too good with it, 50 is still pretty underwhelming. She is worse than other Illusion Manta carriers. She's worse than some other agility heroes. I think she's alright. She can farm pretty fast in the jungle. She's got some magic bursts. She can build Scepter and play magic style with Refresher. She can do physical attack. But when I play her, I'm never thinking like, boy, am I glad that I have Luna over someone else. So that's my thoughts on that right now. Then let's go to C tier. C tier, I'm going to be bringing the following. Terrorblade, Riki, Templar Assassin, Pudge, Wraith King, and Weaver. Now, Weavers, like C tier, I already think that it isn't that bad. Like, you have these, you can get pretty good result. Terrorblade typically tends to farm quite fast. He makes 2 to 3 usages of his Metamorphosis early game, and then he gets like level 7, 8, 9. Then he can start being ready to actually push enemy tier 1 towers. I've lost to some pretty good Terrorblades, and it's not bad. Overall though, I just haven't been super impressed by the hero. He has a very low win rate statistically on the ladder, about 44%. But when you look at the pros in DPC, they do tend to value him quite highly. So there's something that I'm not pretending to know everything. I'm making this tier list. I'm not saying I know it all or that it's correct. It's just my feeling. There's something we're missing about the hero. I think you have to push alongside with it. Yeah, this is my experience versus and with the heroes and playing it. This is not for you to copy into your games. Just my feelings about it. Riki. Riki, in my opinion, is best as a 4 or a 5. If he plays as a 1, it's kind of a coin flip. I've had some Riki carry position that come along into fights relatively early in the mid game and then just keep getting kills, and it actually works. It can be quite impressive. But generally, I would say that's probably 2 out of 5 times, which makes me put him in the C tier. Templar Assassin is a little hard to play as well. She can farm very fast. She has great Roche taking ability because of the standard Desolator that's part of her kit. The whole trap mechanic is probably a little much to handle 100% correctly for Legends and below players. I think Templar Assassin is a great hero. I'm actually very attracted to trying to learn her, but for me it was also a little difficult because she does teeter on the kind of on the edge of risk rather closely. Playing Desolator and Blink and then jumping on a support and deleting them, making good use of the melt ability to try and stay alive, balancing her low health with decent armor and some of her farm items that can keep her safe like Blink Dagger and BKB. It's not the easiest with her, and so she goes into C. Pudge. Is there a more controversial hero in Dota 2? He plays every position, he's very popular, he's very banned. As a position 1, I just saw him win today in the DPC. Watson played him on Team Entity. Looked very good. If your hook accuracy is great, his was well over 50%. You can be a tanky boy holding your tower. Anyone tries to get close, jump you on their tower, you've got Dismember, you've got a great setup for supports to go and gank. But because the hero is so popular, everybody plays it. He's fun, and a lot of people just aren't that good with him. So I'm gonna put him in tier C. Wraith King tends to AFK farm jungle, and the biggest strength about Wraith King, in my opinion, is that enemies are bad. If enemies are bad and they try to kill him, as I recently tried to do on a Wraith King, and then he revives and everyone is slowed, and then the team of the Wraith King is actually there to protect him and to take the counterattack, and you keep doing that, and he waits for his ult cooldown, and he puts himself in a position where it's tantalizing to go after him, but just not safe enough. Yeah. We killed him like 6 to 8 times. One time Aegis, 5 times was his ult. He never truly died. If you do that, then you're playing Wraith King properly. But if you play him like just like a Terrorblade or a Bloodseeker, and you're just doing some lane and then some jungle and then some here and some there, and you play away from your team and they're too far to save you after the revive, he may not feel as good. He needs a lot of levels and net worth, and if it starts going bad for him, there's no way back into the game. And because of that, I have him in C. And then, Weaver. I don't have that much experience with her, and there's been some pretty good Weavers on the team, but her playstyle is so different that I think it might just often be the allied team that doesn't know how to play with her as well. So, not the most popular. I don't have much negative to say about Weaver carry, but yeah, just putting her in C. Him! You know why I always think it's her? Weave her. So let's go to C. Let's go to B tier. B tier. My B tier carry heroes. Medusa. Medusa tends to farm slower than Naga Siren, but gets more XP while doing so, because she's actually there. She's not relying on illusions to do it. The better your team stacks for her, the better she is actually on Dire and not on Radiant, where she gets a better jungle to multi-farm. I think she's better on Dire than Radiant. Yeah, the better there are some stacks, and it doesn't even have to be the Ancients. It can just be the Outpost stacks. It's good. She comes online pretty early, and because she is a tanky backline damage dealer that has a don't look at me ult, while also having mana shield and having good damage for everyone, I feel like having a Medusa creates opportunity for her teammates to get kills. Rather than focusing down a single target, she's hurting everyone, removing some mana, slowing everyone, and she's double hard to kill. She comes online pretty early, earlier than most, because of her multi-farming, and if she plays well and doesn't wait for the enemy carry to catch up, and the team is ready to go push with her, you can build an early map advantage. You can get an early Roche, you can get early towers, and generally that is going to make you more likely to end the game well. She's definitely not super top tier. She was used in the TI finals to get a win by Tundra, but at that moment you wonder, could they have used anything because they were so dominant? But it was a well chosen draft decision there, and overall she's pretty fine. Slark is very strong at top level. I see many Slarks have fantastic games because at the low levels people die more than is needed, and Slark benefits from that. Any hero that infinitely scales has an advantage of bloodbaths. And while Slarks can feel vulnerable sometimes, especially pre-level 6, rotations to make him have a bad early game are far too rare. You can have games where Slark is almost 6, he's almost dead, you just needed your support from another lane to come and help and just make his life a living hell, and you would have so much momentum off of that. Instead, enemy support comes in to help him, he gets some kills, he gets permanent agility, and now he's going to get Aghanim Scepter, Shadow Blade, he's going around getting kills. The only reason that Slark isn't in tier A for me is because Slarks will be Slarks. Slark players, am I right? Like, they can have an amazing game and be super overstacked, net worth brimming, but they're always going to 1v5 into your base. Multiple times. And when you beg them to stop, they won't, because they're Slarks. They got used to having high agility at some fight. They felt their strength level, and then they imprinted that for the rest. Even if they just came back from death and they haven't prepped the start of a fight with their temporary agility buff, they feel like they're as strong as they were 5 minutes ago when they had 150 bonus agility from their temporary. And then they end up 1v5ing. There are few more egotistically minded carry players when it comes to fighting than Slark. And because of that, I demerit 1 letter. Goes from tier S, no, 2 letters. He would have been tier S. I demerit 2 letters all the way from S to B because Slarks tend to throw. Then, PA, Drow, Spectre, Chaos Knight, and Faceless Void. Also B tier for me. Faceless Voids can have pretty bad early games, but Chronosphere can save much. The question is, will they be given the opportunity to stay alive that long and get some good chronos? Faceless Void, I feel like, is one of the best heroes in the game. That's my feeling. But they also tend to Chronosphere allies relatively often. It shouldn't seem that hard, but I am in Chronos so often when they could have just aimed it where I'm not in it. When I'm a offlane or support. Yeah, you wouldn't think it's hard to aim, apparently it is. Faceless, I think is... Yeah, he makes a lot of enemy carries have a really tough time just because they can't fight back during it. And it requires sometimes Aeon Disc or having buyback and then using the timing to fight him again before he has another Chronosphere. But this window is usually often difficult to leverage with random allies. Chaos Knight, he deals a lot of damage. There's a bit of confusion with the illusions. He self-life steals, he has crits, he has a stun. These are all fantastic components to have a reliable carry hero. And the more stuns the better in pubs, because it allows teammates to follow up in a really simple and straightforward way. So Chaos Knight for me is a solid B tier. You don't see him that much. And when you do see him, sometimes he's 1, sometimes he's position 3. But I like him as a 1, I think. He's also pretty good as a 3. You can play him as both. And I think he's solid. We should see him more. I should probably play him more. Spectre might have been lower on my list. But because of Tundra's Skeeter build, the mass mangoes, 3, 6 or 9 mangoes as the most cost efficient, least space efficient, but most cost efficient early regeneration, Spectre becomes pretty hard and not worth it to kill early game. You may have seen some of my games on YouTube, and we looked at the BSJ video on it. Spectre is one of the hardest carries in the late game, and games tend to go late because people don't know how to finish early, usually, when they have an advantage. And that makes Spectre strong. She doesn't have as much kill power in the lane, and if you have a bad early game with Spectre, you can still feel like you won't be able to impact the game at all, with your only out being kill stealing against those allies that are actually able to make something happen. Because she's not as much of an early to mid game playmaker, I'm putting her in B instead of on A or S. Drow should be A tier or above. I have her in B because a lot of people that aren't very good play her, in my opinion, including myself. She's just a popular hero as a ranged high damage waifu. Just like Sylvanas in HOTS, Drow players, I mean, it's a very popular hero to play. You get the high damage, you give high damage to allies. It should be higher, but you always have those idiots hurricane piking into enemy players, into enemy Chaos Knight. And that includes me as well. And so do my allies. That's why she's lower for me. Phantom Assassin, you would think she shouldn't be that good. She can be countered by lockdown, magic damage, Monkey King bar, and she doesn't make a lot of plays early in the lane usually. She's just damage and survivability of the armor and physical persuasion. So you think, hey, magic damage, lockdown, but because she has big crits, and because she tends to farm Battle Fury, and then just farm a lot, she can still scale into the late game quite well. They don't tend to feed as often as a Slark, though they are on that list as well. And that definitely puts them in a different light than, let's say, Faceless Void and Medusa. You may think that I have the opinion that all carries tend to overfeed. No, I would say PA and Slark more than most in this list. But yeah, I think she's reliable enough with her big damage to serve as a good carry position player. Let's go to A tier. A tier for me is Anti-Mage, Lina, and Klinks. Klinks goes around, uses the chaos of pubs to get kills. Because he's very fast and very invisible, he's generally hard to kill. He's good in late game. He's good in late game. And he's got good burst damage. I like Klinks. And generally, Klinks wins games. Lina, she's one of the best, top 2, top 3 in the pro scene. I think that pretty much carries over into Legend as well. She has really big range, good laning, high magic damage, high physical damage. And they tend to pick Boots of Travel, which makes you flexible to play with team that may not all be in the right place at the right time. And that's why Lina's there. Anti-Mage. Yeah. Anti-Mage is an interesting one. I wasn't sure if I should put him in D or A. But I have him in A because I believe the power of late game. If you create space for him, Anti-Mage is going to get a lot of farm, a lot of net worth, and he's going to be very strong. Show your stats with Anti-Mage? Sure. My stats with Anti-Mage is 5 and 6.
Here.
1-1 on the off lane, and 3-3 or 3-4 on the position 1. Yeah, I have Anti-Mage on A tier. Maybe one of the most controversial. Maybe he should be a little bit lower. But I don't know. I'm genuinely happy when I have an Anti-Mage on team because I know the job. It's a very clear path for the other 4. Don't ask him to join. Don't expect anything from him. Create space, and then he's either going to carry, or as it turns out, they only have the skill to hit creeps, and once it gets to the fight, it's a joke. And that happens sometimes, don't get me wrong. But I'll say, I managed to pull off 2/3 of the time to give Anti-Mage a dream game. And when that happens, maybe 2/3 of the time they're good. Is that better than 50% or not? Math eludes me. I'm happy with AM super late game. Alright, that's my A tier. Then, finally, S tier. S tier heroes for me are the following: Sniper, Naga, Ursa, and Juggernaut. Juggernauts tend to get loads of kills in my games, from Herald to Legend. They do their Blade Furies, they do their Omni Slashes, people die. He doesn't get countered as much post Blade Fury. Oh, he has no spell immunity, go get him. They tend to be quite... Juggernauts in the games that I've played are playing their hero better and safer than most other carries. And there seems to be a cult of Juggernaut players that one-trick him pretty well. Yeah, I'm happy with this hero. He's not the best late game scaler, but he's good enough. And he has a good early game in my games. He has a good mid game, and he has a good late game. Not being the best at any one of those in particular, but good enough at all of them that I'm super happy with the reliability of Juggernaut as my position 1. Ursa. Ursa heroes know what they're gonna do. They're gonna hit things, they're gonna hit creeps, they're gonna hit heroes. They're gonna press R, BKB, and Q shard in order to stay alive. That much survivability is super convenient on a carry hero. And they know they should take Roche. Now, everyone should take Roche when you can, but Ursa players have this strong desire to do so. In general, between Herald to Legend, and maybe even above, people don't take Roche nearly as often as they should. Even just to take it off the map, to remove the risk that the opponent gets it if something goes wrong. And while Aegis aren't used well often in Legend, easily thrown away, I have a second life anyway, rather than utilizing it as a bait for the opponents to jump on top of you, they're not always used well. At least you get to make that mistake, rather than the opponent with Aegis. And there's the gold and XP it gives, plus the extra tidbits later on subsequent Roche on Roche item gifts. So Ursa players, they like to take the boss. They're strong, they're hard to kill, People have to build counter items for Ursa, like Heaven's Halberd, or Yule's, or Force Staff, and they don't always do it. You can have supports without any support items in my games. Sometimes I'm guilty of that. Sometimes I do have a Force Staff, but I Force Staff the enemy into us when we didn't want it, like a Night Stalker on top of a support. Or I Force Staff my Rubik into the enemy team by accident. Ursa. He needs to be countered. He does things. I think he's tier S in my games. Sniper. Ho ho! Ha ha! Great range. They tend to play quite chicken, which is always good. Patience is key, I feel like, in pubs. Impatience is loss. Impatience is death. Standing back, having lots of vision, having lots of range, just defending is a great strategy in Dota 2. In pubs, sniper players can provide good early games to themselves by good last hitting and denying with their near instant projectile hit of their basic attack, their right click.
Following the Dota journey, enjoying it a lot.
Got multiple, thank you Fritzlan, he's got multiple item builds. Sniper players tend to be a real breed. If you play sniper, generally you don't play him once, you play him lots. You get addicted to that kind of range, hitting people with impunity. So you become more familiar with the item paths. You don't dabble at him. Actually, I dabbled with him, and here's the result. You know, Sniper seemed like one of the most OP heroes when I started in Herald. Keep in mind, this tier list is also for Herald. I did not know what was hitting me. I had studied all the heroes just very, very preliminarily. And I wasn't sure why I keep hearing a chicken sound. I keep not being able to move, getting mini-stunned, and getting hit. By what? Sniper, people said. I'm like, I don't see him on the screen. That's the point, apparently. Yeah. Sniper. Very good. He gets towers. He cannot be reached. He gets kills. So when I tried to channel all that without any of the awareness, the experience, or even just the instincts to play a hero like that, I like to play a melee hero generally that jumps in. This was the result for me. But don't look at me. Look at how other people play Sniper. I'm generally happy with the Sniper tier S. Okay, and then finally, Naga Siren. I think this is the most reliable hero to carry with in Herald to Legend. And I'm not a Smurf, but if all I played was Naga Siren, I would have reached the Smurf queue by now. And while I don't see that many other people play Naga Siren, I think they should be. They could be. But maybe they don't control the images as well. I've had a couple of Nagas on my team, and they're looking to get their Heart of Tarask and then fight. I think that's a great timing. You can fight with Orchid. You can fight with Heart of Tarask. Both are a big power spike. Manta is needed to make images do good enough farm by themselves. Before Manta, you need 2 illusions per camp or even 3. After Manta, 1 could be enough. And you can accelerate your farm a lot. You generally know when it's time to go and kill with her. You've got a very strong ult. Just like Lifestealer, you can use your ult to TP out. But it's even more reliable because you can't get bashed or reverse polarity or anything, because they're actually completely completely stunned, except if they turn on BKB. Huge range, especially at level 3. Yeah, I think she has it all. Of course, you still have to play it well, but Naga, I think, is S tier. The pros, of course, agree. Well, I agree with the pros. The pros agree with Grubby's tier list. That is not even published yet. But yeah, anyway, Naga Siren is a top 3 carry. Lina is a top 3 carry in DPC. And I find that this pretty much, these align with my opinions on that as well. So that's my list. Tell me how I'm wrong in the comments.